Dayaların dayısı.
Abilerin abisi be.
Nasılsın, iyi misin?
Sen de 2 sene önce yine bu sarı koltukta buluştuğumuzda
Anlatacağı konu da şu: düşük maliyetli küçük ekiplerle büyük proje yaratmak.
Sen şimdi hangisini savunacaksın onu söyle
Abi
bana.
bugün evet. Ben de tabii ki 2007'yi savunacağım.
Sen 2007'yi savundun. Shot fire! Shot fire!
Game Jam, Fall Jam sizin için bir Steam oyunu yayınlamak için temel olabilir.
İnanılmaz büyük bir fırsat yani bu hakikaten.
Artık herhalde PlayStation 6'yı görmeyeceğiz.
Şu anda 9 liraya çıktı. 9,5'a doğru gidiyor.
Gidiyor.
Yani ona da gider.
Kafa rahat. Güzel. Evet.
Hello and welcome everyone. This session will be sponsored by Unreal Engine and it's a Q&A session with Jozeph Azzam. I'm now inviting him to join us to answer our questions. Hello Joseph, welcome again. It's nice to see you again on Indieway.
Yep, nice to be back.
If you want to introduce yourself first, then we can move on to questions.
Okay. Yeah, hi. So I'm the technical evangelist for Middle East and North Africa. And my background is mostly in, well, technical, an Unreal Engine for its technical art. I do a bit of art, mostly on, mostly programming. And yeah, I've been basically traveling the region until the pandemic. Met a lot of studios, worked with them, helped them solve some of their problems, and yeah, that's about it. So if you have any questions related to, well, basically anything, send them my way.
Okay, I'm starting first with Arda Öner. He says, hi, we didn't have updates on Verse since its announcement. Can you elaborate on Verse and share if there's any updates on it? Also, Fortnite Chapter 3 written in Verse.
That is something related to Fortnite, which I cannot really answer, unfortunately.
Okay. Mükremin Yılancı asks, Unreal Engine needs high hardware for... I'm sorry. Yeah, Unreal Engine needs high hardware for both playing the game and developing. What do you plan for low or medium hardware?
I mean, I don't think it does. Unreal does a really good job on high hardware and managed to use those resources, but also it adjusts to lower end hardware. And honestly, like Unreal Engine 4 came out in like 2000 and I don't know, 12 maybe. That is like 8 years ago. So it was running on those computers back then fine, and I think the low-end computer these days is as fast as the gaming computer 5 years ago. So yeah, I think Unreal Engine just fine, and you just have to optimize if you're running into some issues.
Okay, why people use more Unity than Unreal Engine for mobile platform games? What do you think for that?
Well, basically, it's just that Unreal started as a PC and then support mobile at first, and Unity started from mobile where it had a bigger opportunity. And by the time Unreal started, Unity already had a bigger market share. But stuff are changing definitely in some areas. So anything for 3D related mobile games, you're gonna find some good Unreal Engine titles. But anything like 2D hyper casual, you're gonna still find Unity, because while Unreal has the tools to make those games, it's just overkill for those. Like it just offers you an incredible amount of suites and tools that you basically don't need to do a hyper casual game.
Okay. And also he asks, can we see you at GIST 2022 in Istanbul?
Well, I will have to see how the pandemic goes. Like it's like something we keep analyze every few months. So we know that for the next few months, we're still not going to be traveling. And then after that, we'll have to check again if that's a possibility or not. So, yeah.
Okay, Emir asks, any plans on improving the official documentations? Much of the things used constantly are explained poorly.
That is weird question. I mean, I use the documentation all the time and they're really well explained. I think they're very beginner friendly. Is there something specific that you're stuck on that you can ask me about? That'll be better. But yeah, other than that, no, I think documentation is really well written. Like I use them all the time.
Okay, Emir, if you have anything specific to ask, you can write down on the Q&A menu. We are continuing with Arda. There's a new tool released for Unreal Engine that allows using geometry nodes from Blender in Unreal Engine. This will make Blender more like Houdini in terms of procedural mesh generation, and this will open up so much potential, especially for indies who can't afford Houdini. Is it still in beta phase and need a lot of improvements? Will Epic look to adopt the project and help its development?
Well, I don't know if we have any internal plans for that. I'm not sure which tool he's referring to, but I mean, if you know the developers, just ask them to apply for Unreal Engine Mega Grant, and that's how people will see it basically at Epic. I mean, if they want to get support or yeah, they will just apply to the Mega Grant.
Okay, Tolgay asks, Unreal Blueprint. Okay, it's in Turkish. I'll continue with Tolgay later. Deniz asks, what are the nodes/codes that you think are necessary to switch from Blueprints C++ that can be beneficial in terms of performance?
Okay, can you repeat the question just okay?
What are the codes that you think are necessary to switch from Blueprint to C++ that can be beneficial in terms of performance?
Okay, what are the clauses?
Codes. What are the codes?
Okay, to switch from better performance. Well, I mean, that is a very broad question, but basically the first step is there's no like, oh, use this for more optimization. Everything in Unreal is made to optimize, like is optimized as much as possible to do a certain functionality. What you need to do is use the profiler and figure out where your bottleneck is. So once you notice that, okay, this blueprint is running slow, there's a few ways to do it. Either you have to code it differently, or you can move some code to C++. Now, there are some concepts that are very common in games that you can use to optimize. For example, pooling. Let's say you are spawning a lot of actors, like let's say you have a zombie game, you're spawning a lot of zombies, you shoot one zombie, you have to spawn another. That process can use a lot of memory because you're actually creating a new asset, dropping it in the scene, using a bit of memory of the computer. Then you have to destroy that asset. That will take some steps in the background to actually destroy it and let go of everything. Pooling is more like recycling. Whenever you kill a zombie, what you have to do is you reset its health, its animation and other settings, and then you move it back to where you want to spawn another one. So this way you're not constantly destroying and spawning other stuff. You're just reusing some of the assets. That was actually very common even before when they had like guns with an RPG. They will throw the bullet and wait for it to hit and then recall the same bullet and attach it back to the gun when they reload. And that is also some ways to like optimize on memory. And there's one technique. It's not a specific code. It's more like an approach to certain things. It's like there's also sorting algorithms usually. Like if you want to sort an array instead of going through each asset, you can go through, cut it in half, work on half, then jump to half. And there's so many other techniques, and those are more like coding principles than specific to Unreal. Now, there are some things that are also interesting, like, for example, if you are doing a shader for mobile, and sometimes you can get away with just running it on the vertex shader instead of on the pixel shader. And there is a node inside of Unreal that can just convert that. So if you're not familiar with pixel shader, it's an instruction that happens on every pixel on screen, while the vertex shader happens only where there are vertices. So it's actually less expensive to use. But that doesn't work for every effect. So also you have to use that with caution. And yeah, basically use the profiler first, identify bottleneck, and then find if there's a better approach, or sometimes just moving it to C++. So that's it.
He also asked, what are the nodes that you pay special attention to so that the performance does not decrease while writing code in the blueprint?
Well, I mean, Usually I just start with, actually we have a nice stream on YouTube about optimizing. They have multiple and they're all really well. So the first step is develop a game. As you develop, always check that you're hitting your frame rate. If you're not hitting your frame rate, then start optimizing. Don't optimize all the time. You're going to lose a lot of time just optimizing when maybe your game can just handle that performance. So once you notice that you have a drop in frame rate, the frame rate is an indicator of the goal, but it's not an indicator of what's the bottleneck. So what you want to do is use stat unit. This one will show you more information, which is your bottleneck coming from the CPU or the GPU? Now, GPU mostly means graphics and so lighting, polygon count, material. There's a lot of tools for that. You open the GPU profiler and that will show you all the information you need. If it's CPU, then it's more likely code. And in that case, you also use the CPU profiler, which will actually show you its blueprint, which blueprint is actually using that much performance, which C++ function. And then you can, based on that, start to basically optimize. So Unreal has all those tools. It even have tools for consoles, debugging tools. So it's very easy to identify your bottleneck usually. Yeah.
Okay. Emir asks again from the official documentation question, same guy. UMG is one of the examples, does not help with the nested and complicated interfaces.
Right. Let's see. So, it's still a very hard question to answer on stream without showing and having a further conversation. But so UMG in general is easy to use. The nested one, it is one step further. Yeah, that is. Yeah, I'll have to get back to him on this one because it's a very, very specific case. So basically you try to do nested and I'm guessing you run into some issues where either the code became too big and complicated or you couldn't resize it properly. I don't really know exactly which issue we faced. So if you can develop on this one, that would be good.
Okay, Arda asks, I plan to implement level editor to my game so players can create and share their levels with the community. Can you explain the process of uploading a game with this kind of feature to Epic Store?
Okay, so level editor, I'm guessing you want to use the modding tools in Unreal. And we do have modding tools. Now, how to upload it to Epic Store, that's a different thing. So to upload on the Epic Store, you have to basically, well, you have to apply for the Epic Game Store. Keep in mind, I'm not on the Epic Game Store, so that is something you still have to do on your own. Yeah, then you apply, you create your profile there, then you can upload your game. There's probably more steps there, documentation covering that topic. But yeah, to create the modding tools, we have documentation on that. That's what I can say.
Okay, Tolgay asks, do you have a version control tool to suggest for use on Unreal Blueprint projects? Is there a free tool to make possible to collaborate on the same blueprint?
So there are a few things you can do, and let's see. The first one is, well, we do support the major source control, Perforce, and GitHub. Now, those tools tend to be slightly limited. So we created our Unreal GameSync framework on top of it. So you can install Perforce and then use the Unreal GameSync, which we have documentation on. That will make synchronizing your project a lot easier. It's basically a simpler interface that's built on top of Perforce. So yeah, you will use that one. Now, Perforce is actually free up to 5 users for a project that is 5 GB, I think. So yeah, there is benefit of that one. However, if your team is bigger, you probably want to use GitHub in that case, and you cannot use Perforce, but you can also use SVN and other source control, of course. Now, for collaborating on Blueprint, the problem with Blueprint is that it's a binary file, meaning only one person at a time can actually use it. There's 2 approaches to that. The first one is splitting your blueprint into components and subclasses meaning at a time, people can be working on different components, and then only one person at a time would actually need to use the blueprint itself. So that could be something that is simple to do. Now, so it's more about structuring your code. The other thing is, if you are working in the same office, you can check out the collaboration tool, which does in fact allow multiple people to work on the same file at the same time. And then only the person who is hosting the file would submit it to source control. So basically you have all the people here connecting to one computer where the project is, and that project is submitting to source control. I would look into our collaboration template viewer. And yeah, but ideally I would recommend the first one, which is splitting your code into classes and components.
Okay, he also asks, Turkey has a big potential in gaming industry, but crowdfunding systems like Kickstarter does not exist here. Do you plan to further increase your Epic Mega Grant program in such countries?
I mean, I don't see how they're both related. I think you can use Indiegogo. I think that one works instead of Kickstarter, and it is as much as popular. And at the end of the day, it's about your marketing and redirect people towards a crowdfunding campaign. So you should be just fine. Now, for Unreal Engine mega grants, I mean, we've already given a few grants to people in Turkey. We are aware of the challenges that developers face there. So we are taking that into account when reviewing the applications. And I mean, we don't have like a limited number of how many people can get a grant. It's more about, you have a good game, you can apply, you can get a grant. That's about it. So I don't think we're gonna increase, we're increasing the total budget of mega grants in general, but that's about it. Also, if you apply to mega grant and you're stuck or something, feel free to shoot me an email.
Okay, we have another question. Is there a support program of Unreal Engine for indie developers?
I mean, let's see. Support program. Now, well, there's the Mega Grant program, which is basically you can apply to, you can access a small grant to help you develop your game further. There's also the marketplace. Every month we release 5 assets for free for developers to claim. Once they do, they own them forever. And we're constantly releasing new content and everything. Of course, there's the tutorials, documentation, our learning portal is all free. And there's the Epic Game Services, also free. And also there's the awesome community we have on the forums, on Discord, on the Facebook groups. You can find them basically everywhere that needs to support you. So I think for indies, they're pretty well supported. Now, there is a custom support option, but that is not usually made for indies. It's likely for larger teams who are working on like features that's still coming out, and it is pretty expensive at that point. So, but other than that, yeah, those are the options available.
Okay, is there a certified education program in Turkey, or is it just online education in Unreal Engine website?
Good question. Well, I'm not sure. I know we started a conversation with a few universities in Turkey, and our certification doesn't mean you get a certificate from Unreal Engine. It just means Unreal Engine looked at the program and thought that's like, yes, that is a very good game development program, and we recommend it. That's all it means. But I think Turkey in general does have good educational programs. Like if you check out BAU, for example, and this was just one example, there's multiple universities, both in Istanbul and Ankara. So yeah, there's really good, and there's some game studios anyway, so you can like start there, get hired. Yeah, so if your goal is to get certification from Unreal, we do not do that. That's not, yeah, the certification program we have is just to recommend universities. And they should be listed on our website. So I can just very quickly search for it. Certified. The academic partner program. Yeah, I don't know where exactly it is, but there's one that has a map. Oh, I actually found the map. Let me send it in the chat, I guess. So you can see it here. I don't see Turkey. Yeah, Turkey does not have a university, but we did have a few conversations with universities there, but I still think like universities in Turkey are really good in terms of game development. Okay.
Okay. How do you feel about hyper-casual industry?
I mean, I have two opinions. One, I think it's really good in terms of giving a lot of developers opportunities. I think it has a lower barrier of entry, and a lot of developers do start in hyper casual. They make enough fund and they can sustain, and that is good. The other thing is, at the same time, it depends on you and what you want to do. Like, if you want to pay the bills, yes. If you enjoy hyper casual, do it. That's great. And some developers like to work on a title that has to be developed for like 3 years before it's getting shipped. So at the end of the day, it depends on the developer. I think both options are really good, and some can be seen as a mean to get to the other. So yeah.
Okay. Mobile game developers don't prefer Unreal Engine, I guess. Do you know why?
I mean, there's very specific cases where I think Unreal is really good for mobile, and others where it's not. So anything related to the 2D, I don't think Unreal does the best job at it. So that's automatically a lot of people from the mobile market. For 3D, Unreal actually is really great on mobile, and it's even compared to like Unity, the game size is actually can be smaller. The quality of the graphics, it can matches the PC if you're running on high-end mobile devices. So if you're doing like a game like, well, similar type of Fortnite, this type of games, Unreal Engine is definitely the way to go. If you're doing like a PUBG, 3D, big map, all this, great. But if you're doing something simpler, you basically don't need most of the tools. You can use any game engines you want, basically. And because Unity already has a dominance in the 2D one, most developers who already develop for mobile tend to come from Unity background. Now, if the question is, if you look, I don't know, 10 years ago, Unity had the majority of mobile, only had very little. Now, if you look now, that percentage has changed drastically. It's still, I guess, compared to Unity, probably not as much, but it's still there's adoption, really high adoption, and especially for augmented reality, 3D, all of this. Like this is where Unreal actually quite shine. So at the end of the day, it depends on your project. So yeah.
Emir asks, do you have a plan for upcoming Steamdeck console?
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I know it runs on a Linux based, and we do support Linux. So at the end of the day, it should work. I mean, if not, we will support it. Yeah.
Okay, Arda asks, what do you look for in mega grants applications?
Well, the first and foremost is actually a game. I think you need to have a good game. I'm not saying you need to have a 1-hour playable game, but you need to have 10-minute really polished vertical slice of the game. Like people need to see that game and say, okay, this is something that I want to see more of. This is something that shows me that the team can actually deliver this amount of quality for the market. Like, does your game looks as good or better than games that are already out there? Like, if you're doing a Call of Duty clone and it looks worse than Call of Duty, why would people buy it? You either have to be different from Call of Duty or you have to be better than Call of Duty, but you can't be like identical and less. Giving an example, you can apply with a much simpler game, of course. So that's the first factor. The second factor, recommendation, also keep in mind, I'm not on the Mega Grant team, but I did, well, meet a lot of developers applied and stuff I know. Don't ask for crazy high amount of money. If you ask for $1 million and the grant limit is up to like 50,000, they're gonna see it's like, okay, you asked for $1 million. I don't think 50,000 will save your project. So that is probably a reason where like, yeah, that can't really help you. So you want to be realistic with the budget. third, show that the game is active, the team is alive, and there's a good team behind it. So if the project hasn't been developed for years, that's also probably not a good indicator. Yeah, and yeah, that's about it basically.
Okay. Your workshop was great about simulate 1,000,000 units. Will you make such workshops again here?
I mean, the question is, when will I be back here? So that is the main question. Once restrictions are lifted and people are more eased to travel, then definitely I'll come back and I will look into making a more technical workshops. Will it be the same scale of that one? I don't know, because that one took months of preparation. But it will definitely be a very interesting workshop that has a full of information that are useful and technical for sure.
Also, I think he or she, it's an anonymous question. He means in Indieway, an online workshop in Indieway.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, we're probably planning one during the next year. The question is also if people have any recommendations of topic they wanna know more about. I tend to avoid beginner stuff. So basically, I'm not gonna do introduction to Unreal. It's more about showing some features in the engine. So yeah, if anyone wants to know more about those, they can just like maybe tag me on Twitter, ask about it, and I'll take that into account when I prepare something.
Okay. Are there any updates on estimated release date for Unreal Engine 5?
Oh, it's somewhere next year. Don't have an exact date that I can share, but somewhere by mid next year, hopefully, you'll get the Unreal Engine 5 first version.
Do you have any other suggestions for the indies that doesn't have any budget to develop, who wants to develop games on Unreal Engine?
I mean, I don't understand the budget and Unreal Engine question. Either if you don't have budget to make games or don't have budget to, because Unreal Engine is free, and it does
They
not,
they don't have budget to make games. They want to develop an Unreal Engine games.
right.
Do you have any
So
suggestions for that?
the question is budget, they mean for actually like paying people salaries or budget?
Yeah, paying people salaries.
Well, if you're just starting out, it's going to be very challenging to get funding. If this is your first game, you're going to also struggle to find funding. It's usually when you ship the first game, then the next one is a lot easier. I mean, I remember when I was making games and I had like a talk with a publisher once, and it was going great, but then I was like, oh, how many games have you shipped? And I was like, oh, it's my first one. And then that's where the conversation ended. So it is a good thing to have one game that is shipped, but hey, you can still get funding from the first game, just a lot harder. The second thing is, yeah, the first game is gonna be probably you're going to eat a lot of ramens and live at your parents and find people who are as determined as you to make the game, who believes in the project. You want to make them believe in the project, and you want to be fair with them. So you want to split equity of the company probably, unless you're paying them. Yeah, and you want to basically, and you want to start that early, because the more you work in the game, the harder it's going to be for you to like split it with someone else. So yeah, that's the first step. Later on, then once you have a good game, you can apply for the Mega Grant program. That will take a lot of time though. So expect 6 months to a year to get a response. It is very slow because we have a lot of applications coming in and we review everyone multiple times. So there's that, but you can check if there's any local help available in Turkey. Maybe there's some local game lab or some local funding to help with this. Yeah, if you need equipment, maybe a game lab can have those equipment for you to like use while you're there. Yeah, so, or you can just find a job and make money on the side and then try to work on the product at the same time. There's multiple ways. None of them are easy for sure, but once you get there, it's going to become slightly easier. I can't hear you. Are you muted? I think you are.
I'm sorry, I forgot to open my microphone. Emir asks, how do you feel about revenue share projects? Any tips on how to approach them, or should they be avoided?
Well, what does he mean by revenue share projects? I mean,
I guess to sign a contract with sharing their revenue from the project from a
well, oh no, sorry. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. So revenue shares. Basically, if you want to sign with someone who's gonna take revenue share, it's revenue share of the game or the company. Like publishers, for example, they will take revenue share of the game, not the company, because they wanna. Well, they promote the game, they'll get a percentage, and that is a fair cut for them for doing the promotion. That's like on every game they sell, they take a certain promotion. Now, if you're talking about co-founders, then yeah, all co-founders should have a revenue share in general. If you're talking about the company, then that is probably an investor, not a publisher. And it's basically, you can maybe put a time limit if you're not comfortable with it. You can possibly buy those shares back. You can put a clause where it's like, if it reaches that, you have the option to buy those shares, but at the end of the day, having 100% out of nothing is worse than having like a smaller percentage out of actual money. So you have to just make sure that the deal is good, that you're getting in return. And yeah, so don't give like 50% of your company for $10,000. Yeah, it's still muted. You're muted.
I guess that's all the questions. If you guys have any other questions, please write down on the Q&A menu. So Joseph, if you want to add anything, I'll wait 2 more minutes.
I was more wondering if people were facing any issues with like team management, or I feel like most of the questions I got are slightly technical.
Yeah, most of the, actually, nearly all of the questions are technical. So I think there aren't any questions left from our attendees. Thanks a lot, Joseph, for joining us today. Thanks for answering our questions. We hope to see you again on Indieway.
Yeah, hopefully. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.